Hey, I'm Chris. This is Soham. We're here to talk about EG's history in Valorant, where we're at right now, how we got here, and kind of dive into a little bit of the lore of EG VCT. Soham, how are we feeling about the team going into stage 2?
You know, we had such a close qualification. We just missed it by that game. But you know what? It's nice that we lost to G2 in a way, because right now they're the gold standard when it comes to the Americas, right? So we're just there. That gives us a lot of confidence, gives me a lot of confidence. And honestly, we're looking forward to just everything we worked up until for the last 18 months since we've rebuilt. It's come time to qualify for champs in stage 2. Let's do it.
That's right. Go to Paris, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, do you want to go to Paris? I want to go to Paris.
I would love to.
Yeah.
I would love to.
I don't think I've been there and ventured out too much just for other events. So this time maybe we'll go out a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like the team was really starting to gel. Like, it's a little bit slow start to the season.
Right.
We're pretty much used to that under Potter, right? But like the team, as they get going, they really start to come of their own.
Yeah.
And you're seeing that towards the end of stage 1. But the G2 match was a heartbreaker. I was literally I've rewatched it a few times. I don't know, maybe glutton for punishment. But it's just we were just so close. And I've tried to tell people who don't follow Valorant what it's like, and it was if you're a football fan, maybe it's your team was up 10 or 13 with less than 2 minutes to go, and the other team came back. It's just brutal.
I think the interesting thing about games like that is it builds confidence in a way, but obviously you want to close those games out. I know the players and the coaches obviously want that more than anyone else. But one thing that we can take away from it for sure is that if you're that consistent against some of the best teams here, it just makes us more, lights the fire more under us to go test ourselves against the international teams as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
So guess what the next step is? We got to qualify for an international event, right? And for this team to do the first international event since the rebuild at Paris to champs, that would be a great time for this team. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, same. I'm excited to see how we match up in stage 2. I don't think anyone really wants to play us, right? The fans were looking hey, EG's coming alive.
Right.
I think everyone else saw it too. Now we have a new map to play.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe a new agent before the end of stage 2, the way Riot goes.
Yeah, and from your perspective too, on the business side, yeah. I am really curious, when you don't make a land, but you're kind of expecting it, you're having these conversations, probably with a bunch of potential partners and everything like that. Yep. What kind of implications is it for you on the business side as well?
Yeah, it actually means a lot, right? When you look at how teams find success, when you win, there's fans who buy jerseys, right? They want to represent you at events or wherever. Capsule sales are highly focused on competitive success. And actually a lot of companies we're talking about somehow were based in and around Toronto. And so for us not to be able to be there, activate on site, was actually a big miss. And then there's, opportunities for revenue from Riot the more you qualify for international events. They want to reward teams that are putting in the effort to try to be competitive, and so to not qualify definitely affects us. But I think it also shows hey, we can. It wasn't we were the bottom, right? And so when you're having these conversations with partners, if you're a bottom tier team or you're just at the bottom of the table, right, not making it even given a chance, it's really hard to make that sell. But if we can talk about, hey, we're improving, we're going to make it there. These are things that you can talk about, message, and provide updates on. And so people do get excited about your success. So
sure.
It's not all is not lost if you don't make an international event.
And look, there are as many teams that qualify, there's a lot more that don't, yep. Right? So in this industry, obviously, we need to together come to terms with what happens in the ecosystem when you don't qualify. It'll happen to the best of us. It'll happen sometimes to the worst of us, right? So yeah. I think partners are starting to understand that more and more as well, which is obviously a healthy sign for the ecosystem, right?
Yep.
From the competitive side too, when we miss an event like that, and stage 2, and in this case, for example, ended up being 2.5 months away or something like that from our end of stage 1, it's odd too, because you have to decide how are we going to practice? How are we going to use this time frame where some of the teams will be out. They're not going to be even regionally available to practice against, because they'll be towards Toronto, or they may be for EWC as well, right? That's also happening. So we have to actually decide how to practice and still keep things moving along and productive.
Right.
So that in and of itself is a very interesting timeline, because Potter obviously has a lot to do with how we structure our practice, and we've had a lot of great discussions about let's make sure we are peaking towards the start of stage 2, rather than do so much practice up in the front of where we didn't qualify in stage 1, but then maybe we burn out closer to the start of stage 2. So we're very mindful about that aspect of it, competitively speaking, as well.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not that good at Valorant, but like I feel like some silver linings, right? Like you get to see more teams play, right? Like so we've seen a lot more of Sentinels, we've seen a lot more of G2. Esports is always concerned about burnout, right? And so like without travel, I mean, even teams going to EWC and then having to come back and go right into the Valorant season, like our team should be rested, ready to go. You hope and prepped. Whereas like other teams could be a little scramble, a little bit of like, hey, like, oh man, how many, we do complain about how few matches there are. Like, there is some burnout involved with travel.
I remember the curse of MSI too in the league side, right? Like when a team qualifies to MSI, historically they've done worse the season right after. So that for sure exists as well. And some of the timelines too, in terms of like Toronto ended and 2 weeks later stage 2 starts, but then EWC is in the middle. It's gonna be tough for those teams for sure. So, I'm very curious too, like, do you still feel like going to stage 2, we are underdogs? Do you feel like it's something that's like, we've had that mentality, we've had that, even the 2023 story, we're the underdogs, right? Like, how do you feel going into stage 2, seeing us progress since end of 2023, we had to rebuild totally, like, where are we right now in your eyes? Are we still the underdogs going to stage 2?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, we are not. I don't think anyone looks at us like fans as like the top tier of Valorant, right? In terms of, you look at your G2s of the world, right? And so I think EG will always be the underdog until we qualify again for an international event. Because we haven't done so since 2023. We're kind of like, in my eyes, like I wish we weren't here, but like we're kind of like that, a little bit of that gatekeeper team, right? Like if you are going to international events, you're probably either beating us or splitting matches with us. If you're not, like you're losing to us, right? And like, which is a great position to be in. Like we're top 4 or 5 in the league, right? We finished top 4, I guess, in stage 1, but you want to be top 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, that's the goal. And I think that's a really difficult part of, when we first entered Valorant, what were your aspirations like? I mean, compared to, obviously, we won a championship. That's amazing. But like hindsight, let's go all the way back, probably middle of 2022 or whenever, you guys were prepping, the exec team at that time was prepping for that VCT application. Can you walk me through, like, how did that feel? How did that come up even? Like, how was the decision process like to even decide, should we enter this ecosystem? We were a right partner at that point in league, but like, what was that process like?
The process actually goes back all the way to 2020.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which is like, we're talking 5 years of Valorant, right? Like, people at the office were playing. We were getting invites from Riot to go play on the beta and everything, and then like you see it blow up on Twitch, you see the amount of people playing it, the amount of people in the beta, and all these other teams are making signings, right? Big splashes, they're all getting involved, and like we're kind of just sitting there for a little bit, but we have to figure out like what is the way that EG enters into a title in the way that EG should enter into a title. And so like, and I can't take accolades for this, but like, former people at EG, Greg Kim, Andy Barton, like came to us and said like, hey, we have this idea. This deck was called the Potter Project, like, which is hilarious to think about in like now, 5 years later. But like the Potter Project, and they presented it to us, and it was like, look, we have this opportunity to get Christine Chi, also known as Potter, right, the CS:GO legend. As well as another player named Claudia, who was another female pro. They were going to be signed by another team, a team actually based out of Korea, and for their female team. And they said, we have the opportunity to bring them in, sign them, and like create Potter as like the face of our franchise going forward, and like put her in this position to be, the face of EG Valorant, and build her up and build a team around her, with the goal of actually entering as like a mixed gender roster. And so we brought in the first roster. We launched that in like, I think January of 2021. And the idea was like, let's make a splash on the Valorant stage, do something that really hasn't been done before since like a long time ago. Never, at least in Valorant. But it was something that tied to EG's ideals and our mission that anyone can be, our belief anyone can be a gamer, and the belief that we want to give people opportunities.
Right.
And so we put together this team, but it wasn't truly for competitive success. Like the expectations were like we're going to be top 20, top 50 team in the U, and like have a chance maybe to qualify, right? And that was kind of where we always stood. But it was like the idea of like let's give people an opportunity. Let's start to build around Potter and like see if there's a longer term play for her, whether that's a coach or GM here at EG. And obviously like kind of the stars aligned, right? Like when we brought people together. And
glad we took that plunge, right?
Yeah,
back then.
Exactly.
And you know, the whole mixed gender roster too. Obviously, one of the things that the community, some of the community obviously is super supportive, some of the community is not, right? That's just how it goes. And one thing that I do find interesting, kind of witnessing that roster, Potter and I, go way back. This is 20 plus years in the Counter-Strike days. What I've noticed with her is one thing she's learned from the CS days, but also she brought into this mixed gender roster that we started at EG Val, is it really is a pressure cooker, right? So of the people that come through an environment like that, they're ready.
Yep.
Because all the community, the love and the hate both, it gets you, it may not get to you, but you learn how to deal with it, right? And like honestly, that kind of environment, we saw some great moments. We saw some lowlights, of course, like any team, but one thing I really do appreciate about that learning process was that one, Potter kind of understood, okay, what is the next phase of her career? Where does she want to take things?
Yeah.
Keep playing? Does she want to coach, obviously? But also just like all the players that came through that, I really feel like they had a better understanding of how do you deal with pressure? How do you deal and play under pressure?
Yep.
And also with under a prestigious organization that's tier 1 and all the eyes are on you, right? A lot of things. So kind of curious to your take too on like that mixed gender project. We took those learnings into the VCT application, obviously, right?
Yep.
So now tell me, we're going from that to the actual application process. I need to know, man, like what was going on over there? That's crazy. That entire year felt so crazy, the whole application and everything like that.
It was, yeah. You're right. It created an understanding of like, how do we really like, what do we want to focus on when we believe in Valorant? And it was, development, not going out and buying the best players, right? Like building a little bit more in-house, obviously like trusting in Potter to do it. And I was like, she's probably got the toughest job out of anybody. The spotlight's always on her, right? And like, you got to perform, and like that's hard to do, and people want you to fail. And so the fact that she's been able to be at the top of her game for this many years is just a testament to her ability. But like when we made a lot of changes, right? I think like we ended up going to we brought Potter in as coach. Claudia left, and then we went to kind of just a different roster. We brought in a bunch of different people.
Right.
Try to find like. And I think like you and I have talked about this, like trying to find like the core that you like can build around, right? And then like find the other pieces that make sense and fit in. And like so, we brought in like guys like Boostio, right? To kind of be that person that Potter worked with for so long. And then we found Jogamo and Com and kind of created that.
Those sound like good players.
They were pretty good, I think. All pretty good players, still going. But like even people like Reformed. Right, and Apoth were on those teams. A lot of players who stuck with us through the 2023 season too, as part of that, part of our like scouting roster, if you will, the 10-man roster that we had. But that the 2022 year was really kind of nuts because we were like, and this is like super deep EG like backstory, but
I'm ready. Let's go.
Yeah, so like early 2022. Like we were not, or late 2021, early 22, we weren't that good at Valorant. Sure. We had lost like this offline event that we shouldn't have lost. We were still trying to figure out what Jogamo fits in. I think he came in playing like Jet, which obviously he doesn't play now anymore, right? Like trying to figure out the positions and who those other pieces were that could fit around Boostio and with Potter's guidance. And so there was actually like, this is kind of crazy to say, but like I was told, like, hey, we need to cut the Valorant roster and like get out of Valorant. And this was 2022. Like things were like spiking. We just had like 2021. What was that? Reykjavik was the event at the end of 2021. Like it was on the trajectory of like this is the title you should be in if you're gonna be a tier 1 org. So like I kind of went rogue and made the decision that like we're gonna bring the team up to Seattle to boot camp them.
Right.
for the final challengers, open qualifier to see if we can get into challengers. And like, they didn't get it in the first try, but the second bracket, they made a miracle run, qualified, right? And I mean, this is testament to them. Like, they put in the effort. They realized, like, hey, we got to go after it. And they did. And then they went on. We beat that Optic team with Ye, right? And I remember being at DreamHack for that when I was down. It was happening during DreamHack. I was down there with Danny Engels, and like we found each other, ran in. We just gave each other this huge hug. Amazing. It was such like a huge event. I mean, being Optic, the 2022 Optic team, like that, like I feel like that put us on the map to the point where like. I know fans were like, hey, EG, did they even know they made franchising? Like all these memes that we had, right? Sure. But like, I think that, at least in my eyes, of like, hey, we have a team like that can play, and for fans who are really into it, like realize like, wow, like they've got something here with EG, and we did with those 5 players and Potter, and then we got the invite from Riot to apply, and like they told us all about the ecosystem, and we're like, okay, this makes a lot of sense in terms of the way they're looking at the partnership program, the way that they're building in-game revenues, the way that they potentially are going to give us some data so we can actually use some of the tools, right? Yep. That you and the team were building around League and Counter-Strike, and so we went through this crazy RFP process, which like, I think like Liquid's shown like a little bit of what they did for the LCS application, if I recall, like. We had like an 80-page presentation. We had like 2 or 3 like 2+ hour long interviews, and I don't like I pulled like me, 2 graphic designers and 1 other guy working on it. Like we pulled 2 all-nighters to try to get some of this stuff done in time. And I haven't done it all. I mean, I'm like a much older guy. Yeah. Like I haven't done an all-nighter in like a long time. Not recommended.
I remember too. I mean, I want to hear a little bit more about how that process went. Because like, I mean, that sounds like a super stressful time at EG, maybe in your personal life as well, with everything going on there. But I remember also, like you mentioned, that boot camp where we qualified, right? I remember Christine Potter had said like that's like a really, really important moment in her career, in obviously EG Valorant, where qualifying and being able to have like all the small victories, like in a team setting that led up until that moment. I know I've heard her say it in interviews, obviously personally as well, talking to her. I mean, it was a huge moment for her.
Yeah.
And your decision to not drop the 2022 roster at that point, obviously we wouldn't be in this position if you didn't make that decision. So I just one question for you on that is, when you make that kind of decision, maybe you're going against the grain with some other folks at EG at that point. I'm sure that's a lot of pressure for your own role, and like where do things go from there? So walk me through a little bit of that. How does that feel? I don't think a lot of fans sometimes understand like these decisions. I mean, we don't take lightly.
Yeah.
Number one, but number two, I mean, if we get them wrong, I mean, it's our own jobs. Obviously, we want to make the history of EG. There's a legacy to preserve there, right?
Yep.
There's a lot there at stake, and we do our best, obviously. But those decision points, I mean, you had to make how many of those kinds of decisions throughout your career? I mean, at EG previously, it never gets easier.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. A very stressful time because we had just come off of, our team was also like, we were qualifying for MSI at the point with LCS, and it's like there was just a lot going on. We had the CS stuff going on too. Like there's a lot of things happening from a gaming perspective, I think, in 2022. And so to make that call, like it was against the grain, and definitely I knew I would be in the doghouse. Maybe naive of me to think I wouldn't get like fired or canned for that. Sure. Obviously a big decision, not a cheap one either, to put people up in Seattle for weeks at a time. But like, if we're going to give like a team a true shot, like from a competitive standpoint, like, and get them to gel, and you probably know this better than anyone as a coach of a team, like, you can't have them all remote, right? Like that just, you lack the team camaraderie, right?
Definitely.
Like you can see it here when we're talking to the players. Like if they were all remote, like we wouldn't be as good.
No,
and so
not
like
a team really at that set.
Right?
They're a group of players
just showing up on the server.
It doesn't feel like a team.
Yeah. So it's like, let's give them an actual chance, because other teams were boot camping together or playing in like different locations all at once, and we weren't doing it. So like if we're gonna be like a tier 1 team, let's go for it.
Yeah.
And like sometimes you just gotta like you just gotta make a decision that like, if it works, and you have you feel good about the decision because it's either the opportunity of like what's gonna happen if it pays off is huge.
Yeah.
But two, like you feel like it's the right choice and the right decision to make, and like you have to go for it. Like if your gut and like some of the data says like this is the right decision to make, like yes, there's going to be fallout if it goes wrong.
Right.
But like you almost have to make that choice for the good of the organization. And like that was kind of the like when you think about like being on a team, it is a business, but like you're also thinking about like the longevity, the brand,
Sure.
Like there's so much that goes into every decision we make here. It's not just dollars and cents, right? It's not just like, oh, what's going to be the most cost-effective way to do this thing. Like you have to think about like, how's this going to impact EG long-term? Like, what will the fans think? Like, what is this going to look like for our legacy? And like, there's so much I feel like there's so many like exterior forces on decisions, like especially because of social media, we're just more heavily scrutinized, and like fans are very apt to share their thoughts, which I love, and I read almost all of them, or I try to, but like, that's like the decisions are just not like a traditional business decision where it's like dollar and cents.
No, and like to the point of going back to the VCT application, right, that came after that, I think Riot does really care about having execs, having leaders in a team where they are evaluating the application, evaluating who they want to bring into their ecosystem, right? And this is a celebration of 5 years of Valorant, right?
Yep.
And I don't think Riot makes those decisions lightly either, because that's a reflection of who are going to represent Riot.
Oh, yeah.
On stage, on socials, everything like that. So I think them knowing that we have leaders like that, and you have to take some decisions that go against the grain, because I think almost all key moments at some point were against the grain.
Yeah.
At some point,
right?
Against some, right?
Yes, against something. Yeah.
I think like that's something that's really key. And going to the application process, then when you heard back from Riot, did you get any intermediary updates? Like, was it like you submit the application, that's it, you wait till the decision point, or like did they give you some updates in the interim? Like, what's going on there?
It was no. Short answer, no. Like there was like initial like, hey, we want to do this, or we're interested in doing this, and then there were like some due diligence things from Riot, and there was a short proposal, a couple interviews. We actually we sent them gift baskets because we knew they were going to be reviewing like a ton of like different proposals from all these different teams. We sent them a printed out copies of the application and our proposal as well as just like presenting it digitally. But like we didn't really know, and it was a long waiting game. And honestly, I wasn't sure what to think, like, because.
Were you confident we were going to get in at that point?
No.
So
I was not confident.
Tell me about that. I mean, because let's say we didn't get it.
Yep.
And I'm skipping around a little bit, but it's such an interesting topic, because I was on the CS side at the time, data, and I was watching this happen, right? In the office, watching you and everyone that was involved, like pulling these crazy weeks and all-nighters, like you said. So what would have happened if we hadn't gotten in? Did we have a backup plan? Like, what other title maybe we explore there? It's like we went so all in on Valorant, and then our application was so focused around Potter, which I think was a killer idea. Obviously, worked out really well.
Yeah, it worked out.
But what would have happened if you didn't get in?
Honestly, Valorant would have been most likely dead for us. Maybe we would have focused on game changers, but I think it would have just been a refocus and reshifting of EG into other titles that we are currently in. And Valorant would not be a piece of what we are, all we are today for now, right? As well as just like a key piece of just, our legacy. And so I actually have no idea where we would be, but definitely you and I probably wouldn't be sitting here.
Yeah, 2023, obviously, which came after that, all the way till us rebuilding around Valorant, right?
Yep.
None of that stuff is even in existence, right? If that's the case. So that application itself, it was focused on Potter.
Yep.
What exactly was it about her that you thought Riot would resonate with, that really spoke to their values, but also spoke to our values as well? It was obviously a critical part of the reason we got in, and she's still here to this day, which obviously we're super proud of, and she's super proud of being here as well. What was it about that you felt like would work well in the application?
Yeah, I mean, she obviously is somebody that we value. Riot has valued in the past as a caster, commentator, and other things. I think her work ethic and values around player development, strategy, strategic thinking, competitiveness, right, all were tied to like what we want to be from a Valorant team and how we want to show up in competition. And I think when you look at like a game like Valorant and the way Riot's designed it, and like this is me just my conjecture, but like all the agents are varied, right? Very diverse cast of characters to play as. We've heard that, you know, a high percentage of players are women.
Yep.
And when you look at like the fact that like we believe that anyone can be a gamer, like it just all kind of fit, right?
Right.
And like the way that Riot's presenting the game, the way that they're building out game changers, which I think at the time was maybe even First Strike, like then they changed it into game changers. All these things led to like, hey, like this is just a natural growth of the message that both EG and Riot were trying to put out and talk about and live, right? And not just talk the talk, but walk the walk and show like, hey, we can have anyone be a head coach of a tier 1 esports team, right, at the top level. And so, yeah, that was definitely around it. We talked about a 10-man roster in the RFP. Obviously, we ran with that going through, you know, and really being data-driven around our decision-making. And, you know, we ran we ran a couple combines, right, ahead of time, which obviously
clutch,
very clutch, right, led into some great combine finds, if you will, right? And so
it's to say the least, for sure.
Yeah, to say the least.
I mean, you lean into this a little bit, but I think something that Riot obviously really cared about is they're building this new game. They're the first venture into a real, you know, another blockbuster title beyond League of Legends, right? And obviously they're not going to bring in anyone.
Yeah.
So I think we did need to stand out in a way that other teams couldn't. And I mean, we were just so fortunate that going all the way back to 2020, like you said, that we had this idea, and then Potter was down, and she had ways that she was flexible enough. Do I play? Do I coach? Let's do what's best for the entire team. I mean, all of that had to fall into place for us to then make this pitch to Riot to bring us in. And I think, like, if you had to think about the long-term values of a partner like Riot in this, it obviously needs to align with ours as well. Otherwise, we wouldn't want to apply in the first place. And I think that part of it too, you mentioned, you know, almost half of the player base probably in Valorant are women, and that whole game changer scene, it's getting better and better. There are more opportunities there. I think Potter's just such a great role model for all of that, right? And the amazing thing too is it really doesn't matter what gender or anything she was. In this case, she happens to be a woman, but her qualifications also just speak for itself.
Yeah.
And I love that fact that ultimately it becomes about what can you do on the server, what can you do in the review sessions and VOD review, and everything, all that combined, and we chose the best person we could. And it was Potter. Right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, clearly it worked out. And Riot was happy with that process. So, you know, and we are today. So let's talk about that, right? So we're in VCT, and straight away it's 2023. This is the first season of VCT, the official first season, right? We're obviously there. And how are we approaching that off season? You know, we had the combine, we had all these trials going on. Do we lose any of our players that we applied with in that application process? We have to replace them. There's so much going on. So what was that 2023 off season like? Do you remember that?
I remember a little bit, and maybe you remember. I don't know if you were like talking to some of the you know, Andy and some of the GMs at the time, but like I do remember it being very like it was kind of like a Wild West in a way, because so many of the teams that didn't get into VCT Americas or EMEA or anywhere, like they pretty much like dropped their rosters, right? Because like no one knew what the tier 2 scene could look like or what else could be out there, and so like there were just so many players, and now so few spots to play in, right? You have we had 10 teams at the time.
Super exclusive,
so 50 players in Americas, between North and South America, right?
Out of 350 million people, right? 50 spots.
You know, you think about like all those open brackets that used to be in 2022, like where you'd have like 128 teams of, I mean, not all comparable, but like fairly decent players, right? And so I just remember it being like, I remember conversations like, how can we utilize data to you know, understand player talent? And with the combine, I don't know if you remember, like we set up an AIM Labs test and to kind of get benchmarks and understand like, okay, where are people performing and you know what's like a benchmark for like certain skills and mechanical skill. We did some personality tests, I remember, but do you remember when we actually when we announced that we got in to the team and like we just got clowned on because everyone was like, oh, all these people are going to be gone anyway. So like, why would you ever tell these people?
Right.
And like, yet all those people won a championship.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and look, a big part of that obviously came in that offseason too with picking up Demon 1.
Yep.
And it wasn't even initially to start the season, right? Of course. And again, each key decision point met with a lot. I mean, you're going against the grain, especially back then, right? I mean, there were people out. Why is Potter's coaching?
Right. I mean,
why
Potter
are you replacing BCJ?
People were calling for Potter's head. Right?
Yeah, and a lot of people forget that because now we're in that timeline where she did do the damn thing, right?
Yep.
Again, in her career, and it's just like, but until that point, it's so interesting looking back because every decision she had to make with the roster in the off season. I mean, Demon 1 coming in later in that season, right? It wasn't from the start, and you're replacing someone who had such a history also in Valorant at that time.
Yes.
Fan favorite as well, right?
Yep.
It's a tough decision to make, and knowing what's at stake, right? First season of VCT, we just got the application. All the eyes again. So again, there's something about Potter and the team she built that are built for pressure, you know. And the beautiful thing too is I do feel like we're still the underdogs, and we were underdogs then for sure. But it's almost like that feeling of like we're underdogs that we know we can do it, and we don't need to talk at that point. We just gotta bite. Yep. Right, like that's what the underdog's meant to do, right?
Yeah.
So and she's so good at building those kinds of teams and systems to get us that kind of success. Despite on paper, you're like, well, this team doesn't stack up quite well to the other 9 VCT teams. What's going on here?
Yep.
How are they going to find success? Why'd you let them in? So I love that fact about us. I think there's that underdog theme and mentality will never quite go away. I feel like, and I think that's for the good. Honestly.
You want that. I think you want the hunger. You want to feel like. It's almost like the nobody believes in us kind of mentality. Right. You see that in the NBA and NFL a lot, where like the team that feels like they can just chant that in the locker room, like nobody believes in us kind of thing, like gets that extra effort to go win the game. And I do agree. Like I think the fans continue to say and underestimate the potential of the roster, and like you want to have that mentality as an underdog that you're always gonna punch up. And people better not overlook you.
Yeah, we don't build for hype. We build for systems, and that's how it should be.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, the hype will come later if you do the right things, and that leads to success. What's the best way for you to lead to success? Do things that are consistent over time, right?
Yep.
Which is a system.
I mean, coming from somebody who,
who
knows
how
a
it works.
thing or two about coaching,
that's
right?
How it works.
Do you ever talk to Christine about that kind of stuff? Like, are you guys do you guys have like this like crazy like Discord like message that's probably like a golden trove for any any aspiring coach to like read up on?
It's so funny you bring that up. We have so many great conversations and a wide variety of topics. Obviously, Counter-Strike, my coaching days. She as a player, she asked me for advice for things like that. And I'm like, Christine, like I can ask you for advice at this point. Like there's things that you do and you've done at this point that I don't know how to do. I don't know how you did. You teach me. So I think that mutual respect is what's really beautiful in that. I'm sure if AI ever analyzed our Discord messages, they would just be like, damn, these are two people that just like have an immense amount of respect for each other.
Yep.
But we get our banter in too.
That's good. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. And so like on that point too, I mean, we have to touch a little bit on like the EG obviously the champs 2023.
Yep.
Everyone's seen it over and over again. A huge part of our victory, a huge part of our history.
Yes.
That victory. But right around that point, obviously, right after that, obviously wasn't the best of times for EG. Wasn't the best of times for what was going on in Valorant. EG, the players that had just won. Suddenly you go from the highest highs in the world, in your career, in your life potentially, to getting some news that may not be so nice, right? So how did you, what was your take on that period, after champs leading up till the end of 2023, wasn't our brightest moment, but at the same time, it led us to this point that we're all proud of. How did we get here?
Yeah, definitely probably one of the lowest moments in EG's history. Just, I mean, it was a tough year for all of esports, and unfortunately, like, we were we go back to, like, we talk about, like, we want to compete and win, but, like, we're also trying to be a business, and, like, as a business, like, we were just in a tough, very, very tough spot. And I think, like, if we could have figured out a way to keep everybody, like, we would have done it.
Yep.
There was just no other opportunity. And, like, I think, like, if you go back, like, you know, I was kind of taken over at like, after some really tough decisions had been made around the company. And, you know, we just didn't have the money to be able to keep the team together. And, like, that happens sometimes for championship winning rosters. Like, you wish you could do it, but, like, it just wasn't feasible for EG where we were. You know, and thankfully we were able to get everybody to teams and find places for them to play. Maybe not ideal in timing, definitely not ideal in timing. Like, wish we could have given people a lot more leeway, but, like, it helped us kind of revamp EG, get back to our core and focus on gaming and competing, and, like, rebuild around Potter, you know, and find talent and bring people in that we feel really good about, right? Like, I mean, like, we have our second year of three out of 5. Like, we still, you know, 3 guys we feel like we can build around, 2 new ones this year, you know, and Icy and Ye that, like, can be the top of the world, right?
Yep.
And have been.
Yep.
And so, like, I think, like, it's very bittersweet, because, like, you look at that and you're like, man, like, wish we could keep it going, but, like, it just wasn't meant to be, unfortunately.
Yeah, and look, I remember that time frame too. I was coming from CS and transitioning into Valorant at that time as well, with the changes going on. And I talked to a lot of those championship winning players at that moment, right? I mean, I talked to all of them.
Yep.
Just to get their feedback, get their thoughts, you know, what went well, what didn't go well, and just try to understand, like, hey, like, do you guys, at this point, don't forget about what you guys accomplished together wherever you end up. Mm-hmm. And like you mentioned this, I think we ended up having everyone go to where they ended up wanting to land.
Yep.
And I think that part I'm super proud of. I know you're super proud of that as well. Because that's the best of what we could have done.
Yep.
Obviously, the ideal outcome, keep everyone together, let's run it back.
Yep.
You know, that's obviously, I would have loved that even going back to the CS days, right? Hey, and I experienced that in the CS days. It does happen. It happens to the best of the teams. It'll happen again to other teams that are at the top of the world. It's just the nature of the industry sometimes. And I'm glad that the outcome at the end of it was a net positive, where we were able to get people where they wanted. We were able to keep some folks as well, obviously, that are super critical to that run. And we gave it an honest effort while we were rebuilding. And I don't think anyone at EG, especially Christine, is afraid of rebuilding. I mean,
Oh, no.
That's in our DNA.
Right.
I
feel like
it's in our DNA at this point. It's in our DNA for sure.
Yep.
And I think that is kind of what influenced how we were going to approach 2024 and 2025, where we are now, that rebuild process. And it really became about, let's set up a core. Let's focus after that core, right? And, you know, I'm happy to say at this point, like, we have a team that 5 of our 7 team members, I'm including the coaches, right? So Christine, head coach, we have Foa, assistant coach, Nature, Derek, and Superman. Those 5 have been now, you know, working with each other for the last, 19 months or so, right? Probably more than that.
Probably more than that.
Yeah, so I think that's a strong core. When we're talking about core members, I love the fact that those folks have stuck together and they're consistently getting better. Yeah. Obviously, if you ask them, they're the first ones to say, like, hey, we want the results to speak to that. Right? But typically I've seen when you have a core like that in a tier 1 game, you know, playing against the best players in the world, 18 months in, that's the sweet spot. We're about to see the results. And look, I'm not going to hold myself to that, but that's just what the data shows. And hey, we're about the data as well.
Yes, right? We are. Yeah.
So I'm super stoked going into stage 2. We brought in 2 world-class caliber folks this year as well, as you mentioned, Icy and Ye. Icy nearly got to the top last year, you know, after everyone kind of said, no, there's no way, why'd you pick up Icy to back to G2, right?
Right.
He showed he can hang, you know, and obviously we know Ye. He's literally been a champion. He's been at the top. This is a redemption story as well. And, you know, for him, it's great because he doesn't see it as a redemption as much as, like, this is just what I'm here to do, and I'm going to do it. And that kind of mentality is what Potter thrives with. Players who have that mentality, she thrives working with, you know? So that's why I'm super excited about this, going to stage 2. Again, we were almost right there, so
Yeah.
it can only mean that we're about to cross that threshold, right?
We were right there, yeah. And I mean, Icy, like, he was on EG in 2023. Remember? I don't know if a lot of people know that, but like he was part of that 10-man roster,
he was.
right?
Yep.
And so it's kind of cool for him to come back into the system and be the duelist sentinel a little bit. And like, for Ye, I mean, just a world caliber player. Like, I think it's fun to see, like, when you see a world class coach and like a top tier talent like come together in a way, right? Like,
right.
Those are like those cool pairings, especially like in traditional sports and even in esports that like you don't always get to see, but like getting two great minds and people like that together on the same team, into the same, for the same goal can be really powerful.
Yeah.
So.
And one thing that where when you have pairings like that, it's the perfect time to introduce data and analytics into how we do things, because you have, again, now we're 19 months deep with a core, and we also have these world-class people coming in. We have these pairings that are so, tangible in terms of like, we can feel the chemistry. And when you have that and you have less variables to deal with, that's the perfect time to introduce data. And that's what I found in my experience as well. Counter-Strike, Valorant now. And it's so great to have conversations with Potter about this, because she's so down. Like, she's so down to alter and adjust based off of what the data shows, and she's all about the objectivity, right? And hey, data's not going to lie to you, right? You're going to obviously decide what parts of it you want to implement and what insights you want to really focus on for different matchups. Of course, that stuff, you have the experts decide. They have the ultimate decision of like, do we actually take the insight into account for this matchup or the next matchup or something different, right? But the nice thing is having, we're open to that, and also this is prime time, because you have all this chemistry built up.
Right.
This core is getting stronger. And for me, I mean, that's great.
Yeah, you can just enhance it. How has that been? Like, you and I worked together, like when I first started at EG in 2020, we were working on analytics specifically around like League of Legends. We built Factor together. And then you started doing some CS, data analysis and advanced analytics. Like, now we've started to do some interesting stuff around Valorant. Like, how has it been to like learn the game? Have you been learning the game through data and playing it? Like, what's been the transition like for you? Like, when you're you are CS, right? And like to come over to another tactical shooter like Valorant, a lot of similarities, but like, how has that transition been? And like, what are you excited about when we look at like the data and the information we're getting from Riot that we can use?
Yeah, first of all, I really like how clean and structured the data is coming from Riot. That helps a lot. It helps you cut out a lot of the additional data preparatory steps and cleanup steps. So that part is great. The transition from CS to Valorant, one thing I immediately could tell is, obviously there's these mid-round decisions and key decision points throughout the round. That part of it doesn't change. What does change is how by the time you get there, you saw like a billion things that you'd never experienced in CS. In CS, there's a flashbang, there's a smoke grenade, there's a Molotov, right? And by the time you get to the mid-round, you only have to deal with that. And obviously the actual battles and aim duels. But in Valorant, like, before you get to the mid-round, like, you don't know what you're going to see. You're getting fireballs thrown at you, all these different types of smoke, different looks too. When people die, they can still smoke. Like, and in that way, the meta is going to shift quicker. And I think Riot is known for that as well. And their other games as well. Like, they actually on purpose kind of want the meta to be shifting constantly, and not like any one composition or agent becoming too overpowered and things like that. That's their philosophy when it comes to balancing, right? So knowing that, what we focus on the data side on Valorant, everything from patch note analytics to, if once we know what map pool it's going to be for the next season, okay, well, what are our current strengths from the previous season that we can apply to this next map pool? And where are we going to be weak? We start at the very basic levels. Why? Because we have some world-class people that can figure out, looking at that data, how do we now use that to structure our practice? So my philosophy for like bringing data into Valorant has been actually very similar to CS, but not in terms of what you experience, but those key decision points. We give a lot of feedback on those. Okay, you're at the mid round now. Where do you go? How do you finish? Which site is typically weaker for the other team you're playing? And is it weaker when they're in a certain team composition versus another? When they have certain agents alive, they don't have certain util left. Those things we're tracking naturally anyway. But obviously data, it just helps you make those decisions faster. We can give that insight. So when there's a decision point and we don't have the answer, or we don't know, we're at a 50-50 decision point, that's where data really helps.
Okay.
And I think that's where we've structured, and Potter's super open to, really using it for that. When it's a 50-50 round or a decision point, use data.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes
Because
sense.
up until then, you want to, you're playing the game. You have 5 players, you have coaches, right? We don't want to replace that. We're not AI replacing manual labor here, right?
Right.
We're enhancing them and making sure that they're getting as much information when they need it, but not overloading it.
Yeah, and you like you said, you kind of want it to be like start to ingrain it and just help them make those hard decisions, because like it's not like nature can just look at a piece of paper on his desk on stage, right? And be like, oh, all right, we got to go here.
An iPad in real life, right? Yeah. No, I think that part of it's been so much fun, and we're doing a lot of fun stuff in terms of performance evaluation and in general to know, hey, how are you, as a player, are you doing as well as you think you're doing? Are you doing better? Maybe you think you're in a slump, but objectively we're showing that, hey, you're actually around the same level. Don't worry about it, man. Right? And in other ways too, if like you're overhyping on like, this is my favorite spot to play, and you think it's your favorite spot to play, but maybe the results and the data and the damage you're taking is higher than the damage you're giving, all those things we have access to.
Yeah. I mean, the scoreboard doesn't always show the full story, right?
Correct.
So it's like you got to look a little bit deeper sometimes and figure out.
Definitely.
And help people understand, like, are you improving? I feel like that's been the thing. Like, you can see sometimes, you can see obviously with the eye test if people are quote unquote good, I guess, but like, it's very hard to understand like what some of those intangibles are, what the qualities are that like make somebody good, and like how to tell if somebody's even continuing to improve or go down. It's almost like what the fans think in a way, like are they good or not?
Right.
And like, but you have to like take that out of it. But they're taking it just like from a visual standpoint or what they see on matches, and you almost have to like put that to the side, because like I feel like that could get in players' heads, and you just have to like, all right, what's happening internally, and what is kind of like what does our data show? Yeah,
and I think like all the combines and trials we've done in Valorant specifically, and we've done a ton at this point.
Yeah, what, 4?
Yeah, there's been 4, and there's so many the open trials versus closed ones, and everything in between you can think of. Obviously, all of that stuff is made even better with data, and we're obviously in those processes we're also collecting information on like these intangibles, because we can hear communication. One thing we don't get access to as much, which would be great, not that we should, but imagine if you had communication for everyone ever, and the ranked games or whatever. Maybe not all, all safe for work, maybe. But my point is like that communication element and how you're discussing things with teams. But beyond that, how you're discussing after the game ends, that review session, being able to understand, okay, like is this person able to give feedback and receive feedback, or just one or the other? These are intangibles, right?
Yeah.
And this is what ends up deciding if the team dynamic from the start is going to be strong, or if it's going to be somewhere in between, and you have to work on all these stuff outside of the game just to even get to that baseline strength, right?
Yep.
So I think the combines helped a lot influence the direction of the data analytics as well, and a key part of that was the communication side as well. So I'm very excited about some of the stuff we're going to do around comms analysis, as well as just overall, imagine you can, as a player, of course, you're also looking to become a Radiant, of course.
Yes, of course.
On the path to becoming one, imagine you can pop in your ranked games and it's like, hey, Chris, you're talking too much here. You can talk less here. Here's some streamlined communication. Those are things that we're not that far away from giving feedback on your communication, and it'll be just for you. No one else will hear it, and you'll just become a better player, right? And if it works for you, it'll definitely work for everyone else.
Yeah, right? Yeah, I would hope so.
Oh, man. So, a big question to me, too, I think this is probably a really interesting one for me to get your feedback on, is without outspending, when budgets are limited and constrained, we obviously have to rely more on these, data points to get the best of what the other folks in let's say other GMs, other teams don't see, right? So in your eyes, where did you get that kind of mentality from? Because obviously I wouldn't be able to implement some of these things unless you were so open to this stuff as well. Like you said, we go way back working in the innovation team at the start of EG, almost the new part of EG, 2019 onwards. But where did you get that mentality from too, of like being able to see and utilize data sets, and where did that come from?
It's kind of, well, definitely not from my education in a way, because like I was a history major in college, so like, but I started as an engineer, I guess, so like maybe there's something there. But,
sure.
like I was a big sports fan growing up, and like looking at stats and looking at, everything around fantasy sports, like that was like I'd lived and breathed that stuff.
Got it.
And so like for me, looking at that way to evaluate players, at least some that I watched and like teams that I followed, was a big part of how I was a sports fan. And then when I got into the esports space, like I was more on the partnership side to start with. But as I talked to like the GMs and just kind of like, just like we chat in the office and everything, just about picking your brain, like I would ask like, oh, they signed this player, or I'd be like, oh, how do we make that decision? Or like, what was your thinking there? And like most of the time the answer was like, well, they played against this guy in like ranked, or like they've seen him on the server and the players like feel like he's really good, so like
Right.
we're gonna bring him on.
Right.
And like
word of mouth.
just word of mouth, right?
Right.
Like, hey, like this is a good player. A lot of eye test and word of mouth, and like, which is great. Obviously, like a lot of sports have relied on that. And baseball from a scouting perspective was all word of mouth,
Right.
a long time ago, and eye test. But like, there's more to it, right? Especially when like we can get even basic game data, right? Or you have third parties that are giving you like ratings, whether that's like certain there's a bunch of websites out there that give different ratings. Like just using that as like to build a full profile of a player to help make a decision, like I just felt like was lacking.
Yep.
And so thankfully when I came here, we got the reins to like do a lot of this stuff and work on things. And if you're not like, I just feel like in this day and age, if you're not using data to make informed decisions, like you are missing the boat.
Yeah.
And like you can do really well and hit on people and find players without it. But like, I don't think it's easy to do that if you don't have an unlimited budget, right? If you're trying to be like, if you're trying to be smart and win, right? Like smart from a business standpoint, but also try to win, like you have to figure out ways to find people who are undervalued.
Yep.
Or who are overlooked by others. And maybe there's like, oh, this player's overlooked because like they have this, they're not like, we'll just call them like a 5-tool player, right? They have 4 out of 5 tools and they're like deficient in one area. But you can find another player who is overly good in that same area, right?
Correct.
To offset the difference.
Yeah, it's a math equation too, in a way, right?
In a bit, right? You find all the pieces that fit together rather than just like, oh, like here's all the best players from each team, and we're just gonna do this big buyout and like put together a super team. Like I feel like at least we haven't seen super teams work all that.
Yeah,
that much.
and even if super teams work, and of course there's examples in other games that it has worked. I think the interesting thing too that fans don't kind of look into because they don't have this information delivered to them often is the team dynamic may not hold if you bring a bunch of superstars together.
Yep.
So you end up spending a bunch of money and a big risk. And this is not like a small risk that may or may not, it's a really big risk. What happens with superstars? They've obviously got to that point in their career for a reason.
Yeah.
That means they've built some type of ego for a good reason. You put a lot of that together, what's going to happen? I mean, typically, the answer is kind of clear, right? You're going to have to deal with a lot of team dynamic related issues.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Then you end up having spent a lot of money. Now you have suddenly, 2 seasons later, it's like, these guys are not getting along. We have to make a change. And you're thinking, you're scratching yourself thinking like, well, we just spent XYZ amount. We didn't do super well because the team dynamic didn't function. So now their stock is lower too. From a business perspective, now you can't get that same type of money back that maybe you spent on the buyout. These are big reasons why you're not seeing, even folks who have the money go out and be like, yeah, let's just put the superstar teams together. And if they did, the next time around, they won't because they're learning from it.
Right. Yep. So, it's a tough lesson to learn.
It is a tough lesson, but it's so tempting if you have the money to go do that.
So tempting.
It's so much hype. Of course, the fans are like, yeah, you bring the best team together ever. Yep. But there are some real risks, and that's why, again, we're building for systems, not for hype. Right?
Yeah.
And in order to do that, it has to come down from the top. So to me, I'm super happy that you're super open to data. Obviously, Christine is super open to it. All that stuff is really good for our scouting and building systems over time because, look, if I were to leave, if Christine were to leave at some point, does everything come crumbling down? It shouldn't.
Right.
If the answer is it does, that's not a good thing.
Yeah.
And I love that we all have the mentality, Christine included, myself, I know you as well for sure. It's just we are making sure that EG is propped up and ready to succeed, whether or not at some point, if our career here comes to an end, so be it. But EG at least doesn't come crumbling down. I think that level of belief also is what made this kind of rebuild possible. Is our entire staff at this point believes that.
Yes.
And I think that part of it is critical to make sure that, you know, we are thriving for the next 3 to 5 years. So that's my next question, you know? So where do you see EG, but also Valorant in the next 3 to 5 years? Where does it go from here?
I mean, we're coming up to a pretty interesting time actually in Valorant because, you know, the initial partnership program will be, you know, is coming up to like renewals, I guess, if you will, at the end of 2026. And like, you know, Riot's talked a lot about like being maybe more open, you know, providing more opportunities for tier 2. What that means, we actually don't know. Like, could it mean like more third-party tournaments? Hopefully more events. I think like from a marketing and business standpoint, like if you don't make playoffs, right, and you don't make international events, like you're playing 11 games a year. That's really
crazy,
tough
right?
to sell.
Right.
You know, like you lose out on jersey value from logo placements.
And think about all the people working towards all the stuff, then doesn't get propped up as much because, you know, competitively we don't have those opportunities to broadcast it, right? So even from a perspective of like making sure people are feeling valued and their work is being broadcast to as many people as possible.
Right.
That part is so
the
important.
amount of effort we put in, and like you only get to, you know, fans only get to see it, or the public only gets to see it for, you know, 10 times. I mean, thankfully we made a deep run this playoff, so had a few more games under our belt, but it's still very few. So hopefully, like as we go forward, more games, because also like just more data points, more information as well. But like it's just more fun to watch competition, right? Like, I mean, the last 2 months other than watching, you know, Masters Toronto, it's just been, I feel like it's been so dull. Like, I feel like everybody at that company, like everybody here at EG is like ready to go for next week and the start of stage 2. And like, we just, like the competition just fuels all of us. And, you know, we want to see EG succeed. And so like, I mean, where you go from here, I guess I didn't even answer your question. So like 3 to 5 years from now, you know, I would love another trophy to go up here. Yep. Whether that's obviously maybe another Champs trophy, but like a Masters trophy would be fine. You know, they'd all be good. Right. So we'll take any of them. Sure. Would love to see that. And then I would love to see more expansion within, like, I feel like we have a great facility in Los Angeles with the Riot Games Arena. I miss and Riot's kind of was, I don't know if they redid it with the LCS, I haven't been following, but like where like they used to go for like the finals to different locations around the country. I feel like fans in LA get it really good for Valorant, but there's probably so many Valorant fans all over the place that don't get that love, and I think taking some type of roadshow would be cool at some point. Yeah. You know, I mean, there's also we're the Americas. We play everything in Los Angeles. I'm sure like the teams in Brazil would love to have some more stuff happen locally. I could see for us, like, you know, looking at other ways to amplify the Valorant ecosystem. I think Sentinels have done a good job doing off-season events. Right. You know, we've tried. We need, you know, we've been looking for we had a sponsor fall through last year, so we couldn't pull it off. I would love to get back into Game Changers at some point. You know, it's just such a great program, great message. The competition has leveled up incredibly over the past few years.
It's so much. I love to see where it's at now, and like, I mean, it leans into the whole story of the underdog too, right? Like, I love the fact too, like we're about to hit at the end of next year, the end of the partnership, the first end of the partnership era, so to speak, right? And guess what? It becomes about merit. Mm-hmm. What did you do over the last, you know, up until that point? Obviously, Riot's going to evaluate that. The fans are evaluating that always. And we're evaluating that. Also, we're self-reflecting, right? Yep. And I think like being that underdog, being able to, you know, get back into things like Game Changers and Tier 2 when we can, and, you know, be able to support that, it's because we are that as well. Yep. It's not because we want to do that and, you know, there's something in it for us when it comes to going into that scene. I mean, really, it speaks to our values of like, we're here at this point because we keep rebuilding, we keep finding success, and we're the underdog. Mm-hmm. That's our story. I think a lot of folks in those spaces especially, they must feel like they're the underdogs consistently until they're going to get the same opportunities as all the other tier 1 scenes as well, right? Yeah. So again, we're going to hit the end of the partnership era. It's going to be a lot about merit, right? So at that point, hopefully by then we have done quite better and we're on that path now. But I love the fact that this next wave of partners, and of course I'm hoping we get selected again, of course, that'd be amazing, but it's going to be about how well did you do? And across everything, not just competitively, but as a partner, you know, on everything from leaning into all the different types of, hopefully there's a road show maybe, we just had something in Toronto, right? We're going across the Americas, all these things, we're trying to be good partners with Riot on and making sure they're successful as well. Because guess what, like if they're successful and we're also part of that ecosystem, it helps us find success as well, right? So I think overall, I think the next, hopefully this time, next year, we're confident. We see the the uplift of competitive success going up, and I think the start of that is we need to go take a visit to Paris this year. What do you think?
I think that's where we need to be. Yeah, Paris or bust for sure.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
It would be nice to get back into champs, and be able to go over, bring the team over. We send the team to a few champs, right? But as like.
Yeah,
to be part of Riot content.
I love that they supported Corbin, in that champs run as well. I mean, it was great to see for sure.
Yeah.
But hopefully we're part of that process and playing.
That's right.
This time around. So I think Chris, thank you for your time, man.
Yeah.
It was a great conversation. Hopefully I didn't take up too much of your.
No, I love chatting with you about this stuff. I feel like we could probably talk for hours just about about Valorant, any competitive things.
Yeah. No, I was like, oh, there's 7 more questions I could get to, but I'm gonna let you off easy this time.
Okay.
But Chris, thank you so much,
Next
man.
time,
I appreciate you, brother.
Thanks, Aham.
Yep.